Okay, welcome everyone to the Charter and Rules Committee meeting of the Holyoke City Council. Today it is Monday, February 27th, 6:30 p.m. We are at Holyoke City Hall, 536 Dwight Street. With me today we have President of the Council and Committee Member, Councilor Todd McGee. We also have Councilor Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti. With us in the chambers we have Councilor Bartley. And on Zoom, we are also streaming on Zoom. We have with us Councilor Will Puello and Attorney Mike Bissonette. Para lo que necesitan en español, pueden hacer traducción en Zoom o también hacerlo por la computadora on Boxcast. With that said, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Motion to take up item 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item number 1 is an order put in by Councilor McGee that the Public Service Committee be renamed the Public Service and Human Resources Committee. I will let the maker of the order speak on it.
Yeah, so working with the law department, there were some suggestions on renaming committees so that if we're trying to free things up and move them from other committees to even the workload, these were some of the suggestions, so I had them filed.
Okay. Does anyone have anything?
And that would be also item 2.
You want to take it up as?
Yeah, it's up to you. I'm just trying to explain why it all came about. So however you want to do it, I don't mind.
Sure. I think you can take it up as a package.
So take up item 2 as
Suspend
well.
Yep. So motion to take up item 2 as well. Suspend the rules, take up item 2 with item 1.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. I think Councilor Bartley had their.
Oh, no, I'm just waiting to hear what this is about. That's all.
So once again, legal, looking to see if you do employment-related ordinances issues, would it be easier to send it to Public Service Committee to free up ordinance from what they're doing? People might say no, and that's fine. It was just a suggestion. I said file under my name to see if this would be something that the full council would like to see to help out other committees.
Cool. Thank you. I will say a couple things. I know I've been there's other orders on here about adding committees and hopefully relieving some of the work that ordinance does. So I'm all in favor of this. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Tessa, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add that I think if we were going to think about which subcommittee, if we were to take this off the plate of ordinance, which it should go to, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Public Service Committee, since it's already, bringing in individuals who are interested in serving the city in some capacity on a board or a commission. So I just, can appreciate that aspect of item 2. And yeah, I think it's worth exploring if this can make everything more efficient, if they can make the meetings a little shorter for ordinance and kind of move things along efficiently. I think I'm all for new ideas like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just for food for thought.
Yeah, Councilor Bartley.
Thank you, Councilor. I would say I'm on that committee now, and it's probably, in my experience, and it's probably the committee that probably has the smallest jacket size, if you will. And doesn't mean it doesn't do its job. It does. It just doesn't get as many orders filed relative to ordinance, but no other committee does. Not even close. I don't really know how, if there's changes in the law, then it seems to me you've got to, our ordinances are set to, and the committee's set to reflect the city law. So, and same with our charter. So I guess I would need to see specifically where that's spelled out in the charter. I'm all for spreading the love around. That makes sense. But I guess I'd want to have something from the law department telling us that this is permissible, and I don't want it orally. I'd want to see it in writing to say this is what the city ordinances say relative to creating laws. And I would think you might even need an ordinance change, to members of the committee to effectuate that. And I would want that explained to me, not just on the microphone. I'd want it specifically cited, because I don't think you can just sort of do this by city council order. But that's my take. Thank you.
Okay.
I know Mike is
Counselor.
online. Sinette.
Attorney Bissonnette.
I totally agree with Councilor Bartley in the sense of however the process is. This was just to get the discussion started, and if it's something that we can do and people want to, great. If not, at least we took a look at it.
So, Attorney Bissonnette, I think our question is like, is this, if we were to do this, how would this even be done, and is it allowed, essentially? And if you can give us that legal opinion by our next meeting, that'd be great. Yes? Aye.
You're
Yourself.
You're on
Mute.
mute, sorry.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bissonnette. Okay, anything else on items 1 or 2?
Just trying to see.
Maybe the same thing, sort of with number 8.
That's something I thought yeah, number 8 as well.
Okay.
So take out of order item 8 with 1 and 2.
The motion is take, yep.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is take up item 8 up with items 1 and 2. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item number 8 is that all roads and sign issues, including ordinances, be sent to the Public Safety Committee instead of Ordinance Committee. So it would be the same thing with that, Attorney Bissonnette. You can add item 8 into your legal opinion. Cool.
Thumbs up.
Thank you for the thumbs up, Attorney Bissonnette.
So make a motion to table until legal is all up on these 3.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to table until legal has followed up on items 1, 2, and number 8. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Okay, so the next one.
Motion to take up item 3.
Motion to take up item 3. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3 is ordered by Councilor Jordan, Councilor Bacon, that City Council Rule 9P be modified to add only those items that are reasonably expected to be taken up at the meeting per open meeting law will be published on the meeting agenda. Items deemed tabled by virtue of their existence in the committee jacket for 45 days will not be published on the active agenda. Listing every item in the entire committee jacket on every agenda will create confusing agendas for councilors and the general public when the vast majority of items will never be considered at that meeting. This would create an absurd result that appears to be a violation of the open meeting law. So neither of the makers are here right now. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Bartley.
I just want to speak on this one.
Go ahead.
When you're okay, when you're done, thank you. Thank you, Counselor. So I haven't spoken to them either one. I didn't sign on to this, but I do see its understanding. I did happen to be at the Finance Committee meeting last week. None of the items tabled in Finance were listed on the extended tabled agenda. The chair of the Finance Committee said that he disagrees with doing this, that he said he would have an opportunity, but he hasn't had to speak to the City Council President about this. And I'm hopeful that we'll get some consistency. I understand the reason for it. If I may, this is my humble suggestion. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, except why does it have to be on the paper, right? Why can't we just put them all online where everybody reads this stuff nowadays anyhow? And I think that would, hopefully that'd be a win for everybody. So under the DGR, whatever committee, just have all the agenda items, just the way you have them written here. Mr. Chair, see, you have them all right here? Why do we have them on the, I mean, I think the point is to let the public know what we have in our jackets. All the committees. I'm guessing that's the point of doing this. And I think it's a valid point. I agree with Counselor McGivern that it doesn't need to be, and the makers of the order, I think what they're saying is, you know, we want to get the word out, but we don't need to have it all over and waste any more paper if none of us wants to do. But I'm sure you're going to have to table this because you need to hear from them, but I would say, to me, that seems like the gist of it.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy on Melody.
Thank you. I agree that I understand that folks are concerned it can get confusing or it's wasting paper. I think the intent was, as Councilor Bartley said, you know, so for transparency's sake, and I think that the paragraph here that's on your agenda that says, for transparency, the orders below are in the committee, but not expected to be taken up during this evening's meeting. If you have a question or comment about one of these orders for discussion at a future meeting, please reach out to a city councilor or administrative assistant. I think that helps clarify why these things are listed. I'm also just going to use this as an opportunity to advocate for some kind of better tracking system that we can do. Like Jeffrey, our administrative assistant, does a fantastic job keeping things organized and showing us where things are, but that's us, and we understand that. And I think the general public, it can get, folks don't really know what the jacket is, right? Like that's a term that folks aren't familiar with. And there are systems out there that I think as a municipality we should look into. The city of Malden, for example, has a very, check it out, a really straightforward online tracking system that allows you not only to see what's in the jacket, but like when did it get tabled, what's like the update on it. I know right now we're using Lotus Notes still, which is kind of wild to me because I don't know if there's like any other municipality as devoted to Lotus Notes. But yeah, just for what it's worth, I think it would be something we should all look into as a council, and happy to talk to the mayor about that as well. Yeah.
Councilor McGee.
I was just going to say, and Jeffrey Anderson Burgos had a question.
Jeffrey, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to Tessa's point, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti's point is, Brenna and I did actually meet with a potential vendor a few weeks back about transitioning to another software and program that would do in part what you're suggesting. There's a pretty good cost to it, and I know she was engaging with the mayor on potentially funding that. So that is in process.
That is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for that update, Jeffrey. Anyone else? Councilor Bartley.
Well, I'm used to the chair of the city council president. Did you want to speak on this order? I mean, I think it's your kind of, I don't know how I started to get these all listed, but what's your take?
From my understanding, when we did the first, I don't know if it was first or second meeting for charter rules, the issue was we redid the makeup of our rules to be user-friendly. Then this was updated or passed, if I can remember back then, in order to make sure that things that were in committee that were either tabled or taken up and something happened, that they had to then come back out on the agenda. So at that time, when that was approved by the full council, we said that it would start January 1st of this year, because Jeffrey had to catch up on setting up the system and everything else. And come January, that's what we started doing. So I was just complying with the stuff that we took up in charter and rules way back when we first started all this stuff.
I
Gave time frame in order for Jeffrey to kind of do it.
put it on there.
I was
All right,
gonna
Councilor
follow
Bartley.
up. So what's your position, now that I've kind of summarized what Joe had to say and what these two counselors have to say, would you still want to see them on a paper, or would you be okay with them just having them be online? And I'm just going to advocate again for the online, because what the counselor just said, people don't understand the terminology. And you know, we all had to learn it. Like, there's no manual when I got here either, but we all learned it. Every one of us did. But I understand that point. So you could have a little definitions part about what jacket means, what the date's a date, in bold, in capital letters, the maker of the order. Well, what's the maker of an order? Well, we know what that means. Well, why don't you just put a definition? I mean, that just gets so cumbersome on here. Yeah, I mean, it's a valid, noble idea. I just think the point is it makes it
make the
look kind
process
of it just makes it look really, I don't know. Hopefully some of that makes sense. And I think if that's the case, Todd, you could probably even say this is complied with if you think if you're willing to not have it all on the paper. But if you're not, then I don't know. Maybe we just need to
Trust me, I'm tree friendly here. So, if it can go online and you're saving trees, I have no problem with it. I would not want to say it's complied with until the makers of the orders come in, just on due fairness.
Agreed.
So there has been pushback on that where
Agree.
they had
Yeah, I
a different
agree.
view or something that we might have missed, just for fairness.
So when I was working with Jeffrey on doing this agenda, based on having to put the orders on here, I know when he posted it online, he actually, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jeffrey, but I think he posted the 12 items that were on today's agenda, and then there was a link to like, hey, these are the other orders as well. So a link to the jacket. So that's a way there. I agree. Like, I'm looking at this agenda now, and it can be confusing. Like, I made it, and I know like after these numbers, like these are not items that we're supposed to be discussing today, but for the general public, if they're here, they may look at it and miss that one little paragraph over here that says, hey, we're not going to do this. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, whatever steps we take to make sure that the people know how to access what are the orders that are on the agenda and accessible as possible, putting QR codes on the agenda, putting shorter URLs, whatever it is, to get people to realize that, hey, this is the meeting today, but there are also these other orders that are in our committee, and we don't have to necessarily refer them as a jacket, but those other orders are in the committee for now. So, Councilor Bartley.
I'm going to follow up on what Tessa said and what you just said. So what Tessa said was tracking. Todd, how long have you heard about that? So it's a good point, and it's something that I think when you, just in my time here, from Dave Welch to Ryan to Jeff, I've seen over the course of that span improvement in all these areas, whether it's minutes or tracking or online. I've seen consistent improvement. We haven't gone backwards. So I don't know how keen I am about downloading a software. Depending on what the cost is, of course, but when I think we have a pretty darn good organized admin assistant now, I'd like to see what Jeff could come up with, probably on his own diligence. Not that I'm opposed to software from outside. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's pretty organized, and he's got us all organized. That's one. And then two is what the chair said. I just would say, when you look at the state's website for state reps, you'll see, let's just not name a name. Let's say, Sally Smith from Needham. Under Sally Smith from Needham, it says HYZ, this is what I filed, HABL, whatever it is. So under all of Sally Smith's from Needham's, all her legislation that Sally filed or signed on to, well, you obviously see where I'm going with this, but we have our own little pages. Some of us filled out bios, some of us didn't, but that's okay. Mine is up there, but under mine, under Dave Bartley, you could say, oh, here's all the ones that Bartley filed for whatever period until there's no more room to put it on there. I don't know if there's a room restriction, but again, that goes to your point of, tracking stuff, who's doing what, where, when, and why. Thank you.
Councilor Bartley. I saw Jeffrey just shared their screen. Jeffrey, can you just walk us through what you're sharing with us?
Yes, this is something I started at the beginning of 2021, and it's kind of a manual version of what Councilor Bartley was just saying. When you can go to the state website and you can track how orders happen. And, for lack of having, probably an expensive software for us to do right now, I started doing this manual thing where each meeting I create this spreadsheet which shows all of the items from a meeting. So if you go to the website page for a meeting, I have a link that says status updates for orders. And that page shows everything that was on the agenda for that meeting, what happened initially with it, if it was referred to a committee, dates for when the committee took it up, its eventual final status, that kind of thing. So this is communications. Then I have a section for the committee reports at that meeting, and basically this links back to the initial meeting where they were put on an agenda, and then the new orders with, the filers, what happened to them, and then I regularly update these as the committees take them up and work on them. I will say this is pretty time intensive. It's not very efficient, but it does, provide a little bit of tracking. Part of the interest in pursuing a software is having something that can be more efficiently handled and probably a little bit easier for the public to use as well.
Thank you.
Just
Jeff.
want to say thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I've looked at this before, but I don't know if the public has. So, I think it's great. And to Councilor Bartley's point, you are super organized, Jeffrey, but we don't know if the next person is going to be as much of a rock star as you. Like, we just don't know. So I think you make a good point, just that this must take up a lot of your time, even though it's super, super helpful. So just thank you, as always.
Anything else on item 3?
So make table until the order makers come in?
Yeah. Second?
Okay. So the motion is to table item 3 until the makers of the order come in. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Motion to take up item 4.
Second?
Motion to take up item 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 4 is order put in by Councilor Rivera that committee chairs limit the amount of public hearings added to an agenda. It is not fair and undemocratic to have the public wait until 10:30, 11 p.m. so that they can be heard. So the maker of the Holyoke, he was not able to come this evening. I know this is an order that we've taken up previously. Nothing was really done back then. It was just briefly discussed and tabled. I think our goal would love to see, I think we're all sort of agreeance on it. Like, we shouldn't have public hearings opening that late. So we'd love to ask Attorney Bissonnette for some sort of like language around limiting the time that a public hearing can be open, if that's what the committee would be interested in, so we can have something to look at for the next meeting, unless there's other discussions around it as well. People are...
No?
Go ahead.
You're on the committee.
Councilor McGee.
I guess the hard part I would see is, you don't know, like, one public hearing could be 5 minutes. Another public hearing could be 2 hours. So you could say, I'm only going to put 3 on, and they're all done in 20 minutes. And then you put 3 on next time, and it goes past 10:30 because one is just complex or whatever reason. So I'm seeing that type of issue. How would you address it? Or you just, you take what you get. You can only have 3 in a meeting, or I don't know.
Well, my thought was maybe something along the lines of, if a public hearing is opened after 10 p.m., that we cannot close it until the next meeting or something, just to give people that couldn't make it that evening that late to make sure that they can still have something to say in a public hearing, if you're understanding my flow. Go ahead, Councilor Bartley.
Thank you again. I would just note that when the counselor was on, he'd been on the board for 6 months at that point. There's nothing wrong with filing orders whenever you're here, and I respect all the orders that are filed. But I would be hard pressed to even imagine Attorney Bissonnette or anyone coming up with any kind of a rule where the First Amendment is not impacted by this. First Amendment doesn't talk about 10 p.m. or 2 in the morning or whatever. So the president picks a chair because the president feels the chair is best suited at that particular time. That's how I've always looked at it. Now, I'll happily stand corrected. The chair, we've always had this tradition, the chair sets the agenda. Now, I realize there are exceptions. We're not here to go into those tonight. I think putting a time limit, Todd's a basketball player, I'm a basketball player, a 24-second clock, to use a metaphor, I don't think that's the best way to use the law department's time, seeing how I can't imagine there would be any kind of legality, constitutional or otherwise, that Mr. Bissonnette or Attorney Ball or Clarence Darrow could come up with for this. Despite my heartfelt appreciation for the order, I don't think it's wrong, but when I see on times, the spirit behind it is valid. I just don't think implementing it has any real world possibility. I think we're just going to have to do our best to run meetings more efficiently. I mean, look what we do in city council with 90 seconds. Well, the chair runs the meeting. And if the chair would just simply say to the public, and it can get impassioned, we all know that, you always address the chair. We're going to give you 2 minutes. Look, we're not going to have a stopwatch. Maybe it'll be 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, but try to respect everybody's time. No yelling, no screaming, and we're going to hear you, and everything's recorded. And maybe the meetings can move a little more efficiently. I think we had a lot of, kind of loud meetings at one point. My feeling that the last 6 months have been really softened quite a bit. So, and that's natural when change occurs on a board. It's very natural, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I would say, the committee's going to have to take a vote on this. My opinion is that you can say it was complied with, you discussed it, but I don't see any way Mike can come up with anything other than violating the First Amendment to say that, and never mind the practicality of it, Mr. Chairman. Look, you've got, say the chair's got six on there, and the chair, he or she reasonably feels they're going to get done within a certain period of time, and next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock. That's happened to all of us when we run meetings. You lose track because you're into it and you're running the meeting, and next thing you know, you look, what happened? Oh, wait a minute. We just advertised for these last 2 public hearings, and now the clock's run out, and we have this rule that says we have to shut it down at 10 o'clock. Well, wait a minute. I traveled from far away to be heard, and now you're saying I can't be heard? How does that work? How does that work exactly? I don't think it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. I just want to announce that Councilor McGivern has joined us on Zoom. In response to that, I think that's why my suggestion was not to have it because it's impossible. It's been said, sometimes a public hearing will take 5 minutes, sometimes it'll take an hour, up to 2 hours, so we can't really sort of guess that as a chair. But that's why, so my suggestion is there's something that can be done around, if a public hearing opens up after a certain time, that it needs to go on until a next meeting. So using someone as an example that's coming a long way to travel to speak, they need to leave, it's the second public hearing, the agenda, thinking that it's going to go quick, and all of a sudden 10 o'clock, 9:30 is coming and we're still on item 1. So that person needs to go home, needs to do whatever it is that they need to do. What is their option? Like, they still want to have a public comment, and 10 p.m. is pretty late. Like, I know I'm a single person. I don't have as much responsibility as others in the council, but like 10 o'clock is late for family, for people that have families. So I think, how do we get it so not necessarily, no, we can't open up public hearing, but give as much opportunity as possible for people that want to get their voice heard, which is a different sentiment from what this order is. So that was just my sort of alternative to say, no, we can't put this many agenda items on there. So I don't know if anyone else has anything else to say.
I see it both ways. You can't, as Councilor Bartley said, you can't not give them the right to be heard. And I see what you're saying. It's not so much that. It's more of, it's 10 o'clock at night. The person wants to drive back to Boston or wherever because they're tired. Is there a way to allow them to come back? Because it's a public hearing, it's been advertised. I don't think you can, but if we want to ask legal if there's any way to accomplish that goal,
I see.
sure. I don't think anyone's trying not to limit them. That's why when I started, I said it's hard to address this in the sense of, we do 6 every time we do public hearings. Well, one goes 5, one goes an hour. Well, how do you deal with that? It's kind of a moving target. So is there a way that it did get late, the person did travel far, they're trying to get home, or an emergency happens, a family emergency, and they have to go? Can we offer them some type of reprieve? Sure, I think that would be nice to see if legal has any type of option for that, if at all.
Jenny Bissonette, based on what you just heard now, is there anything that comes to mind as far as this discussion that we're having right now?
He's on mute.
You're on mute.
The first thing might be that the council could order that all public hearings be placed first on the agenda and taken up as a priority before all other business. And the chair could ask if there is anyone there to speak on any of the matters for public hearing. And that might give you some idea at the beginning of the meeting what you might have in terms of time constraints. But I agree with my brother, Mr. Bartley, who suggests that there may be some First Amendment implications, and I don't think we really want to go down that road. But certainly the chair could make some accommodations for those who have traveled a long way. And the agendas can be structured to take those matters up expeditiously, I suppose. That would be one thought I would have immediately on this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti.
I think I'm just thinking out loud, but I mean, is it one of these things where it's a solution might have to be something like having more meetings instead of putting 6 public hearings on an agenda, and then you would actually just have to have 2 meetings with 3 public hearings each. I just throw that out there as I know we already do so many meetings, but yeah, that's all.
Councilor Bartley.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Attorney Bissonette.
oh, thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point on a couple of the other matters that the committee's reviewing tonight. Some of the intent there, I understand, is to remove matters from the ordinance purview and move them to other committees that have a lesser workload, perhaps bring the workload out more. That may, if that happens, that may lead to some reduction in time for ordinance and perhaps a lessening of the time pressures on these public hearings. I know they do joint hearings with planning, which also creates some other scheduling issues for ordinance. But I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonette. Councilor Bartley.
Yes, my brother referenced what's a term of art. So Mr. McGee is my brother. Mr. Bissonette's my brother. Ms. Degnan is my sister. That's how we refer to each other not in the real world, but in a courtroom, or we're joking around. So that's just another term of art, just a little side note. But thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Anyone
I
else?
make a motion to table it to allow the maker to come in.
Okay.
Second.
So the motion is to table it to allow the maker, Councilor Rivera, to come in and to have a further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This one he's not here.
Should we
Well, these are both items, I believe. Items 5 and 6 were both items. We were waiting on legal, sort of like legal language on from last time. I'm not sure what the status is.
Motion to take up 5 and 6 as a package.
So
Second.
So motion to take up item 5 and 6 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The first one is by Councilor Rivera, order to add the following committees: a communications committee and a senior citizen quality of life committee. In order that we create a cannabis committee to deal with marijuana special permits and ordinance changes related to cannabis. So I believe in our last discussion, we were just trying to see if there's language that we can put into play, we can vote on. If there's any updates from Attorney Bissonnette.
I think where we are on these, Mr. Chairman, is looking at the other orders that involve the new Rule 9 and committee structure. And I thought we would work in communications, senior citizens, and cannabis into whatever you decide on the others, so that we have a new Rule 9. And I also see we have to review Rule 9H as well as it pertains to the charter and the responsibilities under the charter that Councilor Bartley pointed out for ordinance. So those are all still in process, but I hope to have a draft of a new Rule 9 for you for your next meeting.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm having some problems getting on. Just in general I get the realigning and trying to lessen the workloads. We've talked about this many times in the past, and it's important because we just, we have so many meetings that go late. We have a lot of issues that, and I understand what the chair is talking about, the makers of these orders are talking about. I just a word of caution though is I came from a time when there were 27 committees, and that means there were 27 different chairs, and there were 27 committees that were trying to meet, and there's only 4 nights in the week that we can actually meet. And it also, we took a lot of work at consolidating the committees into 5 standard committees, and we've added some over the years, the joint committee with the schools, which makes sense, and we've had ad hoc committees and advisory committees and so forth. I'm just afraid if we start dividing up the work by making the new committees, we're going to spread ourselves thin. When we had 27 committees, we had 15 aldermen, which became 15 city councilors. We now have 13. And, ask President McGee, trying to share the workload and trying to get individuals into the best committee that they want to be assigned to is not an easy task. So I think we should really look at, do we think the 5 standard committees are not working? And if so, how many new committees do we want to create? And how much shifting can we do? I think Attorney Bissonnette and Councilor Bartley are correct, though. The charter spells out some things that we're not doing anything until the charter language changes when it comes to the ordinance, and I think finance also. But that's just food for thought.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Councilor Bartley.
Can I just follow up on that, if I may, Mr. Chair, and then just expand upon it? I do agree wholeheartedly with what the finance chair just said. I would just like to expand upon it just a hair. I don't think anything I just want to speak to item 5. I don't think anything in there is wrong. I think it all makes sense. I have no idea what the thought was. Again, I look at the date of the order. It's back in May, 5 months on the board. And that, again, I think as time goes on, we mature a little more legislatively. That's all I mean. I don't want anybody to read into what I said. We just mature legislatively, that's all, hopefully. And I think if we could, through this committee, you could possibly expand the scope of some other committees, such as public service. Public service, I mean, we all know it. Todd knows especially, but I know it very well. I was on that committee when I first got on the board, and, didn't do a lot. And I'm not saying it doesn't do a lot now, because I think Pete does a great job, and he's really kind of moved the committee forward, in my opinion. But relative to the other committees, it still kind of lags. But if you expand upon what the maker wants to do with senior citizens, is pretty self-evident, but quality of life. Well, does the maker want to put some meat in the bones of that? What is that? Communications? I got no problem expanding the scope of other committees. And I think that's what this committee ought to consider. And maybe you can move these out. Relative to cannabis, I just think that having a special cannabis committee, I mean, we did 7 years ago the heavy lifting. If you want to talk about lengthy meetings, okay, drafting the legislation, which, by the way, we haven't been challenged. And I think we've been quite the opposite. We've been applauded. That was those of us who were on the ordinance committee, and then our law department. We all came together. Attorney Cognac, why do I blank her name? She's a tremendous attorney, moving well up in the ranks in the Western Division of Housing Court. I think she's assistant clerk magistrate now. So she's, she was our attorney. She was basically a city council attorney for a number of years, and we were lucky with her successors and her coworkers too. So, I mean, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think 6 can go much beyond where it is now, in my humble opinion. 5, I think you can expand the scope of some other committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. I think based on the discussion, and I guess thank Councilor McGee for putting in the other order around ordinance to smooth the process, because I think, a lot of these committees, or at least the one that I've put in around the marijuana special permit, is directly connected to ordinance. And I think getting other answers for the other questions that we have that are coming up today is going to help us finalize what we actually want to do with the 5 and 6. So we like to entertain it to table.
You want table 5 and 6?
Yeah, until we get more information on just the other order, Rule 9H, and what that looks like.
Make a motion to table 5 and 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So items 5 and 6 are tabled.
Take up item 7.
Second.
Second, motion to take up item 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Order that we add a Rule 9B8, a committee to read: the Youth Services Committee shall have jurisdiction over matters relating to the youth and are the representative body for the joint committee of the City Council and the school committee. Still on this one.
This is just one I don't understand, so I'm waiting to hear you speak.
Attorney Bissonnette and I understood each other last time, and I
believe
don't know
it.
if there was anything new you could help explain, Attorney Bissonnette, what we're trying.
I feel a little dumb, so it's not you guys, it's me.
Oh, yeah.
It got by everyone. The rules call for a youth committee to the city council, but that commission can only deal with issues related to the school department, not to the general, let's say, quality of life for young people. So if I understand the maker,
Got it.
he would like to have a different committee, that the Youth Services Committee of the council shall have jurisdiction both over matters relating to the youth and also act as the council representative on the joint committee for schools and the city.
Okay.
So I think those are the two differences, if I understand it. And if the committee recommends this order, it can go to the council like that and can be adopted as a rule.
Okay. Listen,
Can I just ask?
yeah, go ahead, Councilor Murphy.
It's fine. It's a long last name. How did this work in the past? Who got appointed, or this is before my time, so I'm just curious, like, how did someone get selected as the youth representative, how's that work?
For here?
Yes.
Or for school committee?
So I guess there's part of the reason why I filed this order is because we do have our rule in our city council rules that says that we need to have a youth representative in our city council. So my thought was like, what perfect committee to vet or go through the process of getting this youth than the committee that's dealing with the youth. But unfortunately, when the joint school committee meets with the school committee and the city council, they can't have that discussion. So this is when the youth services committee come in so that discussion can be had. Because the school committee has its own youth representative.
Yep.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we would have our own.
Okay. That would be two different humans. Okay.
Or
Or maybe not. Okay.
That's how we had it. We had two for the council, and then the school committee, I think, had two.
Okay.
I believe the school committee has one representative from Holyoke High North and then a Dean campus,
I think
usually.
that, yeah, so it was
That's usually
two. I
how
think
it
it was
is.
one from Dean, one from Holyoke High. I'm not sure how they're doing it now because of the way but here we had two people at one time.
Okay.
And I do believe, and I think, Councilor Wright, you can correct me, is we had a youth services upstairs,
The youth commission.
youth commission, and they recommended, and they came down.
Councilor Bartley.
Am I get that right? Or
You have it right. So kind of like the youth commission upstairs, where's that now?
Right. Yeah.
Not there, right?
Right.
And then kind of like the two nominees we had, it in theory, it was a good idea. In practice, it was a flop. And the reason for that is not because of the students. It's got to be coordinated by somebody who's a civics or a government or a history teacher at HHS, regular and HHS Dean Tech, north to south. So that really, then has to be really, the reins have to be held close by somebody on this board, and it shouldn't be the president. The president has way too many things to do. But somebody's got to take the reins, work with HPS, the receiver, maybe one day we'll say superintendent, work with them to set up the criteria, find nominees, and then have I would hope, not an administrator, but a teacher, and then not have them come September to December, and then maybe February to May. I mean, it was just, two of them, then they were, at one point, they're entering debate, and one was here till, late, and
Yeah.
one would leave.
Yeah.
What? It was a noble idea. Councilor Ferreira was the one really behind it to start with, to his credit, and I think he would have led the charge, but, Jay was only on the board for one term. He wanted to cycle off, and that's his prerogative. If he was on the board, I think he would have been the ones holding the rein and running with it. So, and then the last thing I'll say to what Mike B just said, it's all good. I understand what they're saying. I just think you should take the current rule and expand the scope. So it's not just HPS related stuff. It can be some kind of a scope that can be even determined by suggestions and brought back to us. But unless somebody's really willing to do that, and a lot easier said than, I would say, so you really want to set up parameters. I'm not saying we're going to be, but sometimes we're here till late. Come on. On a Tuesday, you're here till 11:15, 11:30, quarter to 12. Well, that one volunteer was here that late. It's ridiculous. So I think you really got to have a teacher be engaged on it, and a city councilor be really engaged on it. And then you can work with Mike B on changing the language so the scope can be a little more flexible than what it is now. It should be more than just a relationship with the joint committee. I mean, I don't know what you think about that joint committee, but, I mean, you want to talk, I mean, I got my opinion, I'll leave it with me, but it's not the most active committee, and it doesn't have the broadest jurisdiction, but you could broaden it if you want to be creative. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. I think so. There was an attempt at sort of like, I mean, we tried to change the name, which we thought it was going to broaden sort of the scope in a way. At the end of the day, though, there's still that committee that is comprised of the 3 city councilors and the 3 school committee members. So there has to be a separate committee just because of how that committee itself, the school committee can only discuss school committee related issues. So that's why there has to be the separate committee that only the city council representatives of that youth joint committee can have this discussion on the side. So the rule that we're referencing is 10C. Just to go over it real quick so as people are aware, City Council shall appoint a youth ambassador to the City Council. The term shall last 1 year starting July 1st to June 30th. Shall be eligible to serve 1 term. Individuals eligible for the position must be a Holyoke resident, enrolled in a Holyoke high school or an equivalent program, and be in the range of 15 to 17. They must be allowed to speak during public comment, attend all regular meetings, whichever subcommittee meetings they would like, give a youth ambassador report, request that a city council find an order to give a proclamation to a young person, sit in council chambers and assist the administrative assistant, attend youth-related events on behalf of the city council, meet with youth in other municipalities, sit at the committee table during meetings, and then there's also a selection process outlined as well, which can be discussed and reconfigured and made more accessible and more clear for people. But yeah, so that's really where this order is coming from. I think what Attorney Bissonnette just said, like if we were okay with it, essentially it wouldn't change too much, except that, I mean, it would add the Youth Services Committee. As far as like the work on the president's side, you're not adding anyone new to a committee. These are all just saying committee members are already in another committee. And I think to one of the points that was made, I agree that joint school committee city council does not meet as much. I think they've met twice in the amount of time that we've been.
I'm on that committee, yeah.
Yeah.
Twice?
Yeah, so
3
it's only been twice in about 13 months. So I think there's an opportunity there. And I mean, my thing is, what better committee to lead a youth services and talk about the youth ambassador than the 3 members in that committee? So if you're not agree with it, I'm going to vote yes on it, but it's up to you.
No, it's not that I don't disagree with anything. I really appreciate Councilor Bartley giving the history of the position itself, because I vaguely remember bits and pieces of it, but I wasn't even really fully aware of how this works. And I also agree that we as a body have a tendency to sometimes pass things and not really have a policy in place to implement it, or, so I think it is important to have some kind of better way to do this so that it's parameters, like Councilor Bartley was saying. I don't know if this specific order is gonna I think it's the first step in a process of refining what a youth ambassador looks like. I don't think it's dramatically gonna change anything for now, as far as just clarifying. So, let's just say, for example, I'm on this committee, right? Am I now part of the Youth Services Committee? Mm-hmm. So now I'm on 4 committees?
Yes.
Interesting. Just saying.
So I think
Do we meet at the same time? I'm generally trying to, put some practicality into it.
I would say if this were to pass, I think one of the first orders I would put in is that the city council works on making sure that 10C is being complied with.
Okay.
So when that happens, what committee is that getting referred to around the youth ambassador? Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, it would be the Youth Services Committee. Ooh.
Why do I feel like this confuses me so much every time we talk about
I
it?
know what you're trying to do. I just, I think it has, I think we need more work on it to get it to actually be functional. Because like the last time we had it, another group was selecting people. They came down. There really wasn't any, we actually remember they first came in. We got them the chairs and we tried to explain everything to them. It was almost like a fire drill. And then they were learning on the go, and then some would stay, some would go. They were late. There's got to be parameters to it. There's got to be, hey, it's the president works with the chair of joint committee. They select. They through Holyoke High School and Dean, and it's the history department that has to whatever. I think we have to really spell out how to get there in order to make this work, or it's going to happen like last time, which is 2 people showed up. They're here sometimes, and they're actually great kids. It was just there were sometimes meetings did go to like 11. I think one time was budget that went, and one actually kept staying because he didn't realize he could go, and we actually. So I think, and then maybe time limits on a sense. I think we have to really get down to that.
So I know we're talking a lot about the Tensi, but I part of also putting in the Youth Service Committee is I think the reality, and one thing I said before is that the youth don't only exist within the Holyoke Public Schools, and I think that's the sort of like a barrier right now with the Joint School Committee, because that you can only discuss school-related things in that meeting. So having an opportunity to open up to be able to discuss more community youth services related, skate parks, rec centers, whatever topic, youth commission, all these sort of things. And we can talk about putting all these orders into another committee.
Well, can I play devil's advocate? Like, could some of those things go to DGR?
It can.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, like, my thing is similar to what we've been talking about is, like, I would hate to create a committee for the sake of creating the committee if the committee might not meet. Like, even now, you feel me? Mm-hmm. The joint committee rarely meets, and it's not to say that we don't have important things that we should be discussing with the school committee. So I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. I guess I'm just, I am of the mindset of like really thinking it through before creating another committee. But I get it. I get it. But maybe it's more me being intentional as DGR chair, or I don't know.
Yeah. Whichever. So what would you like to do? Oh, Councilor Bartley. Go ahead.
I guess I agree with what Tessa just said. I really wouldn't be interested in creating another committee, but I would say your timing is excellent right now if you want to start something cranked up for the end of August or early September. I don't think you're going to get it. You're not going to be good to go. First of all, if you're a student, do you really want to come? We meet once in the summer, so there you go. I mean, we have one scheduled meeting in the summer, basically, because we suspend our rules. So I would think you'd be well counseled if you wanted to have it be for the school, generally the school year, end of August through May. So and if they want to stay on past that, then fine, they can go into the June, which is basically budget stuff, and into the one meeting in August. So I'm thinking that might be a way to give you a little breathing room so you can think it out, and then whatever committee. I mean, I wouldn't have a separate committee. I would have the youth ambassador be assigned to one of the existing committees. Again, I think public service is probably not the worst one I ever thought of, because that sort of fits in hand in glove, and then the chair of public service, once you're set up, can work with the school administrators or the teacher or the department head, whatever the case may be, and the students. I think the point of this, at least was from my perspective, was to give students, I never had the chance, and I never even thought of city government but to make them aware of the federal system. The city government exists, that it has, as we all know, quite a bit of purview and authority, and you can do good and bad, of course, but you can mainly do good if you really think about it. And it gives those that are so inclined as 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds to get a little flavor for it right here in this historic room, historic building, and maybe one day they'll run for office. I mean, I remember when Georgie Neves ran, George was, I think he was 22, 23, and he ran at large, and he won. I don't know if he topped the ticket, but he came real close. He only served for one term because he realized he hated it, but that's not the point. The point is, George was engaged, and he worked really, really hard that summer, and he did very well as an at-large candidate. Came out of nowhere, and because he worked hard, and people saw the enthusiasm, and that's how George was, as all of us know. I think all of us know him. So at any rate, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
To not table it, can we just vote on it and
See, I don't want to. Sorry, if I may.
go ahead, Councilor?
I don't want to. I just don't think it's ready yet to be voted on. In my view, I think we still got more work to do.
Yeah.
I understand what you're trying to do, and I'm fully supporting it. I just don't think it needs to be another committee. I think we can put it together to make it work. I'd hate to say, oh, you got to vote on it, and I say no because I don't think it's ready yet, and then it goes by the wayside when we should be doing something like this. It's like a catch-22.
Well, there's a couple orders in my head that I would love the Youth Services Committee. I think my thing is to take on. I hear you on not adding another committee. I think it can get confusing and all these sort of things. I can also just put in these orders in the next agenda and see where these orders all land and see what committees, they land. So I just want to vote on stuff.
Well, if I may.
Yeah,
I
Councilor
agree
Bartley.
with Todd completely. I think you got to have language in front of you. And I think you ought to really consider not having, you really ought just, whether it's DGR or whatever committee, just assign the youth person to a subcommittee and have that be part of the scope of the subcommittee. You should consider that. But Mike can get you some good language about what the scope should be, and then you just figure out where to plug it in.
Go ahead, Councilor McGee.
Kind of back to item 1, or that the Public Service Committee be renamed to be Public Service and Human Resource Committee. I know it's still out there to be reviewed. Order that the Public Service Committee be renamed to be Public Service / Youth Coordinator. I mean, trying to achieve the goal through what we've all been saying. I'm not saying to do that committee, I'm just...
No, I mean, well, my thing is, like, if we're not planning on adding another committee, which I'm not 100% against it, like, I hear that part, then let's spend time working on that other part, and then because we're never going to add this other committee. And regardless of what happens here, like, this order is to add a Rule 9B8. Like, if it is to edit Rule 9B7 around which is the joint school committee and then have that discussion and try to word it better, then I think that's why I'm like, if this is not what we want to do, add another committee, all these sort of things, then it's okay to vote on it and say no.
But you're going to follow up with a different order.
Well, I want to follow up with orders that I will, some other orders. I mean, including 10C, because I think part of the discussion we're having right now is that, I mean, we can talk about a couple rules, but like 10C is a rule that we've all voted on, that we all agreed to, and it's been a year and a half, and now no one has made any moves on that. So I just want to make sure that we're also following our own rules that we agreed to.
So what, just brainstorm with you, why don't we vote 7 down with the understanding that it's going to come back as another order from you, worded differently, or however you want to do it?
Just say comply with.
Yeah.
Comply with. There you go.
Yeah.
Whichever.
Yeah,
I don't know why-
that way.
Whichever.
Yeah,
Make it
we
more
don't get
friendly.
we don't get leave to withdraw anymore.
Complied with.
We're all too sensitive.
I make a motion that this is complied with.
Second.
Second.
Motion that item 7 is complied with. All in favor?
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear your update.
Mr. Chair? Can I just humbly ask
Counselor
the
Bartley,
committee
go
to
ahead.
suspend the rules, just, because I do have to go, and I just want to speak on 10 real fast. If you could just take it out of order real fast.
Motion.
I go to item 10.
Second.
Okay, motion to take up item 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10 is probably, I put it on here because it was one of the first orders that came to Charter and Rules and figured we need to make some moves on it. Order that the City Council adopt a rule to establish a 2-year legislative term. Any orders pending in committee or not acted on must be refiled at the start of the subsequent legislative term. Councilor Bartley.
Yes, and again, I look at the date on this, and I would say we've all legislative matured. Even Kevin, Kevin was off the board for 4 years, and I told Kevin many times he certainly lost his fastball in the 4 years he was floating around out there in civilian land. But my take on this is as follows. I understand it completely because stuff just gets crazy in those jackets, and I get it. But to me, it doesn't feel like it's a democratic way to go about. If I'm resigning, or if I'm not running for reelection, or if I get beat, whatever, I mean, I'm still a city councilor until December 31st. And if I file an order in November or December, it's because I put some thought into it. I think I do it with all my orders, but yeah, that's for somebody else to decide. And I want to see it at least taken up for debate. Now, if the chair can't get, because it's November, December, and things get crazy with the holidays and whatever else is going on, snowstorms, whatever. Sometimes we just don't have ability to meet. And next thing you know, the clock runs out. Well, now my successor, no, I'm not doing it. Or nobody else wants to, I don't know, unless there's a really, really, really important reason other than, we want to slim down the jacket. I get that. To me, the more democratic way would be to at least recognize that the orders are valid, to at least have whoever the city council president is, whether she or he or whomever it is, can try to expedite taking them up early in the term, whoever the chairs are. I would hate to see this just be kind of like in Boston. They do that for a reason, Mr. Chair. They do. You know why they do that? Do you know why they do? I'm asking. Do you have? It's not for legislative efficiency. That's a total canard. They do it because they want to zing the person walking out the door. That's why. There's no. I mean, everything's online now. They don't. They just want to zing that person. I mean, I don't think we have to be as crass as they are in Boston or in Washington. I don't think we should behave. I don't think we should mimic what they do. And again, I get this. I respect the order, and I respect the intent. I do understand it, but I don't want us to be that way. And so I would not support, and I would speak against it. So thank you. Thanks for taking that order. I do have to go. I do want to hear what people have to say, the reasons, but I'm sorry I have to go. Thanks.
Yeah.
Councilor Murphy Ramboletti.
Oh, thanks. Both those last names. Yeah, I mean, I definitely. This is one of the first things I filed, and I guess I'm more mature now. I don't know, but I still, the reasoning behind why I did this still stands, and I think people need to be more thoughtful when they file orders. And I think that we shouldn't file orders just for the sake of being able to, say, look, I did this thing, and then we never really know what happens after that. And it's not efficient. And it's, to me, as a new counselor, it was really weird that we had to debate things that no one was even here anymore. And they had filed these orders, and we were, I feel like if I don't get reelected, that's it. I lost my shot to make change legislatively, and I shouldn't have the ability to do that beyond my term. So, I mean, I don't feel super passionate about passing this. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm glad, Councilor Jordan, I'd love to give him the opportunity because I don't think he's been part of this conversation at all since we brought it up. So I don't want to, I'm not ready to get rid of it. But that's just my thing is that, when you're in office, you should try to legislate. We all know how long everything takes and how you can feel like, okay, I've been on the council now for over a year and what have I really done? But it is, I don't know. I just think it's something that we should discuss. And I also just think it's worth reminding people that just because you file an order on something, like Todd, you were saying at the beginning of this meeting, if people don't want to do it, that's fine, but we have to have the conversation. And maybe this has been a conversation before, but I thought it was worth having. So that's me.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Ramballetti. I was going to say, we've done a lot. I don't care what anyone says. We've done a lot in this last year and a half. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Velez. I said before, and I'll say it again briefly. The reason I don't support this, well, there's a number of reasons. Beginning with when you file an order, the full city council receives it, and the full city council refers it to committee. It becomes the body's order that they agree they want something to debate, something to discuss, and something to perhaps push forward or not. And I think that's the way I've always looked at whatever items that we're working on. The maker of the order is important. The maker of the order certainly is the lead, but it doesn't mean it's only the maker of the order that's in favor of what's being proposed. I could like with what you proposed, what Tessa Murphy-Ramballetti proposes, and to get rid of it just because you've left after January 1st, to me doesn't make sense. And then to refile it, it could become very cumbersome if there's a lot of orders like that. Second, the middle of the term is the beginning of a new term is the middle of the fiscal year. And everything that we have, financial orders, which are really filed, most of them are filed by the mayor under the name of the chair of the finance committee. Those are ongoing, very important orders, that pertain to the finances and budget of the city of Hoyoke. In the ordinance committee, we have a number of zoning changes that are filed by councilors that require and sometimes require multiple public hearings, and they're ongoing. And they could be very important to the entire body, even if the maker of the order leaves, after their term is up. And most important, not most important, but also equally important is, there's a lot of co-filed orders. So what if there's 2 or 3 people that have sponsored one order, 2 of the 3 people have left the council, but 1 is still there? Do we keep that order, or does that order have to be refiled also? Refiling can cause timing things, can cause hearings that have to be reset, can cause a number of different things that are already ongoing. And sometimes orders are tied up in the law department, sometimes orders are tied up waiting for information to come back from the department head, even though the committee and everybody was in favor of it. They're just waiting for the final draft or the final information to come back from a certain department. So I get it. It would make a clean slate and would look great and clean out those folders real quick. But I think at the same time, it'll cause a lot of rework unnecessary and a lot of cumbersome rework, as soon as the new term starts.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. I think with Jeffrey working on a system that's more user friendly and more accessible to people, I think this may help with the 2 years. I am in agreement as a new councilor a year and a half ago coming in, all of a sudden you see all these orders that, yes, we knew a lot of them and some of them were why we were running, but there's some, just an example, I think there was an order by Councilor Rebecca Lisi in the last public service meeting like 2 months ago around inviting a certain group in to discuss, and that was put in like 2-3 years ago. Like that's a kind of order that why can't that be filed? Why can't they file that order? Hello. You good?
No, you can
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's really all on it. Any discussion? Anything else?
So, I think, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor
the
McGee.
I think the intent.
Can you excuse
sir?
us, sir?
Sir,
we're in a
having
meeting
an
right
open
now.
meeting right now.
I am a messenger of God
Okay.
Almighty,
We're-
sits on his throne in heaven to deliver messages
Thank you.
to this country.
Good, though.
In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem,
Yes.
Major, son of David,
Thank you.
son of Mary and Joseph, repent of your wicked ways, all men of the world. God is coming. God is
Preach.
coming for his church, and he
Okay.
is coming for his disciples and his prophets.
Can we?
God
Thank you,
is
sir.
leading me to deliver this message. Woe unto those who have caused men to stumble. Woe
what else
unto
to
you
do.
who have caused the world. In the name of Jesus Christ Almighty, repent of your sins. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Okay, I'm shaking.
You can resume the meeting.
God bless y'all. Chambers has been blessed.
All right, so
So we were on item number. Sorry for everyone at home watching. We had a visitor, a little interruption. So we decided to escape real quick, but we are back. Item number 10 is that we're on.
Yep,
Councilor
so-
McGee.
my thing is, I mean, I understand the intent in the sense of you have a bunch of stuff in there and it's old and you want to clear out the jacket and do stuff. And at first, when this first came out, I said, oh, absolutely, make it more efficient. And then two, help new counselors come on to catch up. And if there's a bunch of stuff just sitting there pending and, it gets a little confusing. But Councilor McGivern made a point at that last meeting as well as tonight, which is there are things that, like finance and ordinance, that this can become problematic unintentionally, which is we're doing something for ordinance. It's towards the end of the year. We have to table it because, might as well use it again, Scrivener's error, something happens. So we table it. And my term ends. We gotta get rid of it pursuant to this. And I'm not saying that was the overall intent, but that's what could happen. And no one wants to refile it because it was a close vote or something like that. So I think, to me, if you look at what we first discussed, which is all the transparency, all the other stuff being added on to the agenda stuff, we're trying to catch up to address this problem in order to make sure that there's not stuff stuck in committee. So I'd say, although I understand the intent, I think it can become problematic unintentionally.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we tweak it, reword it, or whatever we're trying to do, or if the steps we're now taking kind of what we're doing now is addressing this. But I agree. I mean, Councilor Jordan hasn't had the opportunity to speak on it, and I'm all in favor of tabling it in order to allow the councilors to come in to address their orders.
So is that a motion?
I would agree. I just, not that it's rare that Kevin and I agree on things, but I do think I would love to hear if his reasoning for signing on is the same. And yeah, I do totally appreciate what all the counselors have said tonight. And as Counselor Bartley said, I'm a wise, mature city councilor now. And so I'm open to, not necessarily doing this way. So motion to table?
Second.
So the motion is to table item 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Take up item 11?
Motion, can we take, motion to take up item 11. There's still 9, 11, and 12.
Oh, I forgot 11. I'll just take up 11 and then we'll go back.
Aye. Motion to take up item 11. Item 11 is order put in by Councilor Bacon and Councilor Puello. Modify Rule 60 to add the use of profanity is prohibited, and a member will no longer be permitted to speak on the question of the debate when a member uses profane language. We do have Councilor Puello here. Should we want to speak on it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the order is pretty straightforward. I do want to thank Councilor Bacon for filing the order. I just to keep the peace. I mean, I won't rehash other things that have happened in the past in the council, but I do think it's important that, we treat people with respect when we're in chambers, and just in general for the audience that's watching, and who knows who's watching, right? And I think I do understand the argument that some people make sometimes, like, oh, that's just how we speak, and this and that. But I think there's a certain level of decorum. I think in the past, maybe certain things could be enforced a little bit better. And not just with profanity, but maybe members talking over each other and saying things and doing things that might be considered disrespectful to others. And I think this is just a pretty simple, straightforward order that addresses something that, it's a city council body. This isn't, I don't think this is anything crazy. It shouldn't be controversial. This is just something so basic and simple, addressing people with respect, in council chambers. I don't think that's, I'd be interested to hear what everybody else thinks, but personally, I think this is a good idea. It comes from good intentions, and I support it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Councilor Puello.
I'm so thrown off.
Sorry, we had a moment here in the chambers, so it's a little.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, you guys are. Whew.
Yeah.
I'll go. You guys.
You, Mr. President McGee. I think with this particular order, I do agree we should speak with us to each other respectfully. I think 60 already addresses how we should be respectfully addressing each other, and we do give the president of the body the option to have the last call when someone's speaking out of line or being disrespectful. So I think a lot of that covers it. I personally don't believe we should put profanity, like that particular language, in 60, just because what is profanity? It can mean so many different things to anyone, and depending on how it lands on some people. There are some clear lines as to what can be profane, but there are other things that are still kind of gray. And I think 60 already covers that we should be respectful to each other, and we get to the point of being disrespectful, then the presiding officer should be saying, sorry.
Yeah, and I would just, actually, I had a question about this. I've lost it, though. I would also assume, we're being televised publicly, and, I don't know if you drop an F-bomb on television, I'd love to hear what the folks at Holyoke Media actually kind of thought about that, because that's just interesting for me to better understand. But like, I agree, like decorum is decorum. I don't think we need to, it's easier to like call someone out for using a word that might be considered profanity. And it's not as easy to call someone out when we're speaking to each other like we're not human beings who have to see each other at Stop and Shop the next day. Like, I just think that this is like, it's easier to call someone out on that, but like it doesn't address the way that we treat each other, because we don't treat each other well. I mean, the last meeting was so embarrassing. We don't treat each other well. And we're all here serving the city. So if we want to have a nice discussion on that and maybe practice some trust falls later or something, like, I don't know, because we gotta do better. It's embarrassing the way that we treat each other. So I guess it's a good conversation to have, but we gotta stop talking about it and just like actually do better and behave better like adults. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. Does anyone else have anything to say? Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just be interested in hearing from the law department. I agree with the rule that we have. I think none of us should use profanity. I don't think there's a place for it at the city council chambers, or a place for it in public arena that we all do our work in. And I certainly want decorum to be the main recourse that we all take when we have heated discussions and so forth. But regardless of how you look at this, this is a form of censorship. And does it also mean that the council cannot vote on the matter? And now we're taking away the voice of the people that voted the individual in for their choice of words. And I just like to hear the law department weigh in on can we write a rule that becomes censorship.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. So Attorney Bissonnette, real question right there. I think at this point I would love to get more deeper information as to what exists out there already that sort of covers this, but right off the top of your head, what you have for us.
I don't think you'd be able to take away the vote, but I do think, similar to limiting the councilor's ability to speak twice or more than twice without a vote of the council, a vote of the council could also silence someone who has used profanity or hate speech or calls to violence or insurrection, those kinds of things. Those certainly can be covered by council rules, but they can't be arbitrary or capricious to someone's free speech rights. I think the best example was the gentleman who paid you a visit a short while ago. He may have free speech rights outside that room, but he doesn't have them inside the room, or whatever rights he may have can be limited by a vote of the council. So very similar.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. Committee, what would we like to do?
I motion that we table this.
Motion.
I missed it. I apologize. I was dealing with the prior issue.
That's
so
all right.
we're doing it.
We appreciate you.
Seeing I missed it, I'll
We
second the
appreciate
chair until
We'll table.
whatever requested to do.
I guess before we just do that motion, I guess table it with the law department, Attorney Bissonnette, if there's any sort of Massachusetts laws. I know I was doing some research about the Miller effect. Any sort of information around it that can help us better understand this rule for the next one. I think that's it. That's the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, go back to 9. I take up item 9.
Second.
Motion to take up item 9. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And item 9 is order that's by President McGee that the City Council Rule 9H be amended and reworded in order to make the process of changing or updating an ordinance a smoother process. Go ahead, maker of the order.
Yeah, this is another one when working with the law department. They asked that we amend this because there was confusion on it. In order to make the process smoother on this order, this was suggested. So I filed that on behalf of the law department. I know Mike is here. He can further elaborate on it if you'd like.
Attorney Bissonnette, if you would like to speak on item 9, the floor is yours.
With regard to 9H, we'd like to be able to go through this. If there's going to be a shifting of responsibilities for the creation of proposed ordinances to include other committee, we're looking at whether or not under the charter that would have to go back to ordinance from those committees, or if there was another way to make this process much easier. As it stands now, technically, the council committee is supposed to send law a draft of the ordinance, and all law's responsibility is to say whether or not that's approved to form. And then, if not, provide an alternative. But it's usually a policy question more than a language question. Language questions we hopefully are able to resolve with you in committee. So by the time it comes over to the law department, it's pretty much ready to go back to the full council. So as we look at this, we're working with Mr. McGee. Hopefully we can find some way to smooth this out a little bit, consistent with the 45-day rule as well that you adopted, to try to get some of these ordinances moving a little bit quicker now that we have more staff in the law department. So looking forward to working with you on that and on making this particular rule 9H a little clearer.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette.
I'll just say that, if I may, that rule is, I read it like 12 times in advance of this meeting, and every time I just felt dumber and dumber. I definitely am looking forward to seeing how we can improve it. I feel like, just in my limited time on the council, I feel like I've noticed that like we need to define as counselors what we turn over to the law department to draft for us, rather than expecting, like, having the law department watch a 2-hour debate about something, and then we say, can you take that and put it into legal, and hope that they somehow can get everyone's feedback into an ordinance. And so I actually, as a new counselor, would like to know, maybe from some of the more senior counselors, like, can I draft ordinance language and like myself, and then give it to the law department to be like, can you make sure that this is codified the right way so that we're like following we're doing it the right way, or do we have to have the law department do the draft? Yes.
Councilor McGee.
So you can file an order to say, I would like it to modify this to read this way.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to act on it, but then it's legal to put it in legal form that we vote on. So could you draft it the way you're saying, I want it to be this, and you just file an order to say that.
Yeah, okay.
But it still has to go to legal to be put in final form.
Okay. Yeah, then I guess I think for the sake of everyone, whatever this ends up being, whatever that looks like, maybe one of the things should be that like we as counselors need to communicate in writing what the spirit of the ordinance should be, rather than us being like, do you follow all that? Like, did you get everyone's opinions, and now can you just turn this into an ordinance for us? That's just my 2 cents on it.
So if I may, so Mike, are you going to get us a draft of the rewording as to what you're looking for to make it smoother?
Yes.
All right, so I'd
That's
say
the plan. A
say
redraft of all of 9 is what the plan is.
all right,
Yeah.
so make a motion.
All of 9?
or 9H?
9 includes other things. Actually, yeah, no, I think that's right. Even looking at it, because I think one of my questions from the beginning, since starting the council, has been, I know our rule says it has to go to the committee on ordinance, but like we're all legislators, so it's like we, as the 13 legislators, does it have to go to one specific committee for ordinance language or legal form to be created? That for me has always been sort of a huge obstacle that we have here. So I'm looking forward to seeing the draft that you come up with, Attorney Bissonette.
Should we table it with a request for legal to provide us an updated copy of their rewording?
Sounds like a motion.
Second?
So the motion is to table it with a request to legal with an updated version or draft for Rule 9H. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the last
Item
one.
12.
Yep.
Take it up.
Second. Motion to take up item 12. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 12 is a letter from Attorney Degnan back in 2021 about legal opinion on procedure to change the charter around council approval on appointments. I just put it on here just to either archive it, clean up the jacket, whatever we decide to do. We don't have to get rid of it, but I just want to move it out of the quote-unquote active orders.
Okay.
Archive it.
Archive it, yep.
Second?
To archive.
Go motion to archive item
Second.
12. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.